Is Ukraine continuing its advance towards Tokmak? But have leaked documents revealed that Elon Musk, of all people, appears to be taking sides in the conflict? I'm Paul, U.S. Army combat veteran. It's September 9th, 2023. This is your daily Ukraine update. Let's get into it. Okay, first, taking a look at the control map, there's been a couple of changes, right? First, we can see Ukrainian forces advancing south towards Novoprokopivka, seizing control of this large forested area here. Again, probably just trying to force Russians from this strong point here that's in the northeast of the actual town of Novoprokopivka. In addition to seizing control of some of these smaller fortifications. But as you can see, Ukrainian forces, again, controlling some level of the, major Russian fortification lines here outside Verbova, but they haven't really expanded this per se. But I will acknowledge that if they are in these trench lines, this is sort of the behavior you might see of Russian forces, right? As they try to withdraw and stabilize their lines, perhaps along these remaining defensive establishments. That might be what we're watching happen here. Again, as it's tough to say whether or not, to what extent Russia is repositioning in the face of pressure to the east, and to what extent they want to hold these positions and are being forced out by Ukrainian troops. It's probably some level of combination. Russia seems to be increasingly willing to run this fight as a standoff, right? Trading space for time is the doctrinal phrase we use in NATO, where you engage the enemy, you pin them in place, and then you withdraw to fighting positions further to the rear, giving your forces in this case, these established fortifications time to prepare for the enemy as they move in. But as you can see, again, it's a positive sign for Ukrainian progress in general, of other and almost more notable progress outside of Optine. You can see here, there's in the last 24 hours, Ukrainian forces have had continued progress, basically knocking on the doors of the town itself. And it's believed that many of Kadyrov's Chechen forces are the ones doing this fighting. Though interesting, one is tagged as the Somalia Battalion, which certainly might be just a name, but it could also actually reflect foreign forces that are increasingly being recruited by Russia to fight. If rumors are true, in places like Cuba, Kazakhstan, Central Asia, Russia is actually attempting to recruit fighters with what for those regions is extremely lucrative pay. So it wouldn't shock me if you told me that militants, for example, from places like Somalia are in formations conducting some of the fighting in and around this area here. But as you can see, again, Ukrainian forces have, over the past maybe 48 to 72 hours, you can see, really pushed back a number of Russian troops. I'm not even sure what this is, 10th Battalion, I'm not sure. But you can see they have really been on the front lines of this, withdrawal. As Optine is now, really, Ukrainian forces are on the cusp of taking control of Optine. In terms of other changes on the front lines, there's not really much else. Going over to the combat map, you can see Russian forces being, very active in a large number of areas, but it says only 30 combat engagements. So you can see that I think this looks more granular in terms of its data, with Russian forces basically launching some level of ground attack in essentially all the spots that they commonly do, south of Bakhmut, right, outside Donetsk City, Volodar, and counterattacking near Robtina. So we're not seeing, I think this looks like a lot, but the number has remained pretty static. So again, to me, it just says that these are almost certainly light Russian counterattacks, probably fixing or trying to counterattack against Ukrainian forces trying to make marginal gains, especially in the south here where we've seen them make gains, right? In fact, all of these areas we've seen recent Ukrainian gains. So it's likely this is maybe part of a consolidated front-wide counterattack trying to reverse some of those gains. Moving over to War Mapper. War Mapper, as of 2 hours ago, is reporting actually, of all places, that Novomayorsk. This is, you can see here is Volodar and Pavlivka. This is reporting actually, a few kilometers, looks like about 15 kilometers west, that Ukrainian forces have moved in and occupied this town on the front lines. It's not even clear that this is necessarily... the settlement's listed as contested, but it's hard to say what exactly precipitated this, right? This isn't somewhere where we've seen regular Ukrainian actions. This is an area of the front line where the Russian defensive effort has been pretty much locked in. So it makes me think that this may, again, be an opportunity for Ukrainian troops who notice that Russian forces have been depleted, likely redirected to fight in places like Verbova. And as part of this effort, right, you could see Novomayorsk is a long distance from even these Russian defensive lines. So it's not a great axis to even try to advance along. There isn't really a clear strategic reason you would want to. Again, I think this is a case of Russian forces depleting their troop formations elsewhere in lower activity areas of the front and throwing them into Verbova and Robtina, and Ukrainian commanders on the ground saying, hey, we think there's an opportunity here. Let's move in and take it. Anyway, guys, if you're interested in getting neutral, unbiased, national security, global strategic situational updates once a week. We have a newsletter called the Strategic Sitrep. You can sign up for free at the Strategic Sitrep at strategicsitrep.com or in the link in the description. And once a week, we send you the most relevant stories to the national security space with no bias, no hype. Oftentimes, these are stories that are not ordinarily covered in the mainstream press, right? So obviously, we talk about a well-known story that Russia confirming Prigozhin's death. This is the one from a few weeks ago, but also U.S. military conducting airstrikes against al-Shabaab fighters in Somalia. Bet you didn't even know that happened, right? And so we try to bring in, again, not just the story itself, but we also try to give you the so what. What does it mean for the larger geopolitical situation? And again, it's free to sign up. You can get the link in the description or strategicsitrep.com. Anyway, taking a look at one of the other biggest stories, Elon Musk, of all people, admitted that he restricted satellite service to Ukraine. Now, for those of you that don't know, Elon Musk, his company Starlink, provides internet-based satellite or space-based internet service to Ukraine in this conflict for free. It's operating sort of like a GPS system. Satellites overhead provide and enable the internet connection, right? And so it's the reason you see so many Ukrainian troops using their cell phones, using mapping software on their cell phones in order to operate on the battlefield, right? That's Starlink. But Ukraine, this was as of, I think, 2020, or earlier this year in 2023, the Ukrainian government requested Starlink service to extend all the way to Sevastopol. This is in... right? This is the headquarters of the Russian Black Sea Fleet. And Musk feared that enabling Starlink, enabling Ukrainian forces to conduct an attack on the entire Russian Black Sea Fleet was a dangerous escalation of the war. Of course, Kiev is saying that this was malicious. This reflects that Elon Musk is actually a supporter of Russia. And believe it or not, guys, my understanding is that Starlink does not have a contract with Ukraine, that they have a contract with the U.S. government. And let me know in the comments if I got this wrong. But the U.S. government is going to be dictating some level of those terms. And the U.S. government has made clear that in order to maintain public support in the US and Europe, that this war be limited in most ways to Ukrainian sovereign territory. And so the fear that this attack on the Black Sea Fleet would be a dangerous escalation was actually probably something that the U.S. government shared. I also suspect that Musk, I wouldn't be shocked if he did it on his own, but I also would not be shocked if he did so at the request of the U.S. government, who said, listen, the Ukrainians, we've been clear, they are not to operate on Russian sovereign territory. Sevastopol is, a fleet at anchor. It's Russian territory. We cannot engage in this level of escalation. So that is at least the prevailing theory, or at least my theory. Now, remember, guys, Sevastopol isn't actually on Ukrainian territory. It's actually in the Crimean Peninsula. Again, the argument that Elon's trying to make here, that this was an escalation into Russian territory, is kind of gray. Though, again, the U.S. has also said that the ability to destroy the Russian Black Sea Fleet is an important bargaining chip that they use to keep Russia from escalating the war in dangerous ways. And so if you destroy the Black Sea Fleet, especially if Ukraine destroys it in the course of the conflict, then you end up in a situation where there aren't as many options for the U.S. to extract appropriate behavior from Russia, i.e. not using chemical weapons or not using nuclear weapons, right? The ability, and rumors are that one of the chips on the table to prevent Russia from going nuclear or using biological weapons, etc., is that the U.S. has said, hey, if you do it, yes, Ukraine is not part of the U.S.'s nuclear umbrella, so we can't guarantee that if you nuke Kiev, we will nuke Moscow, right? That's true in places like Warsaw, NATO members. But they've said that any Russian soldier, sailor, or airman or Marine outside of Russian territory, the U.S. will use its military might to destroy them. But if you have the Black Sea Fleet, which is at this point basically, other than the actual sovereign territory of Ukraine, the region where most of Russia's military power projection is taking place, right? That bargaining chip going away would actually be somewhat problematic for the U.S., especially given the level of sanction Russia is currently subject to, and frankly, how effective they've been at circumventing those sanctions, right? The longer they've gone on, the smarter Russia has gotten in its ability to find ways around sanction. So I say this all because there is a media movement that has decided that Elon Musk is a bad person and can do no good, right? This is an argument that is a pretty bad logical fallacy. And regardless, there are things about Elon Musk I like and admire. There are things about Elon Musk where I think he's pretty stupid. But he's a human being, right? So he's not all evil and he's not all good. So he probably did this thing for reasons that I think are actually not nonsense. And he may have even done it for reasons that the U.S. government want and supported him in. So just a speculation, guys, and just encouraging you, if nothing else, when you read these sort of stories, come into it with an open mind and the idea that there's more behind the curtain than we understand. Anyway, that's all I had for you. Thank you so much to our Colonel tier members of CombatVetNews.com. And thank you to our Lieutenant tier members. I really couldn't do this without you guys. I appreciate every one of you guys, every one of the members of CombatVetNews.com. And until next time, I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.